Welcome to HVAC Full Blast, where real stories meet real solutions. Join hosts Mary Carter and Stephen Ross as they invite Allison Lincks for a candid conversation about breaking stereotypes, leadership in the trades, and building a dream team. Whether it's navigating job site dynamics, hiring for heart, or learning the value of communication over complicated systems, this episode offers lessons and inspiration for pros across the trades. Let's get started.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of HVAC Full Blast. I'm Mary Carter.
I'm Stephen Ross.
And we are hosting a guest today who I am so excited to learn about more and journey kind of what her role in HVAC has been. But Stephen, I'm going to let you take the reins on this one since this is actually a good friend of yours.
Yeah, I'm excited to have Allison Lincks on with us today. As a lot of people know, because I talk about it a good bit, is that I owned a heating and air company with a business partner for about 7 or 8 years. And I try to be very upfront with the failures and the mistakes we made. But one of the best decisions we ever made was both hiring Allison and then promoting her. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about how that came to pass and get Allison's perspective on it. I think one of the challenges that we have in our industry is just talent in general. And so, one thing that my business partner, Tim, was always very good about was just looking for talent wherever. And our motto was, you hire for talent and then you train for skill. So if you're trying to hire for skill, then what happens sometimes is you hire a bad apple. They don't fit in culturally. Maybe they don't have great work ethic, even if they got the skill and so on. But if you go and you just hire for fit, like who's a good cultural fit, who works hard, who's got talent, and then you say, hey, we're going to train for skill, that really helped us kind of in the second half of owning the business, get some better management in place. And so Allison's kind of one of those success stories. So I'm just excited to have her here today to brag about her a little bit, but then also maybe some other folks might listen to this too and go, all right, well, that gives us some good ideas of maybe where to go look for. So welcome, Allison. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So give us, I've told Mary a little bit about you, but just give us kind of a quick background. How'd you get into heating and air at all? Because that's not something that you probably were sitting around in middle school going, hey, someday I want to work for a heating and air company. So how did that happen?
It kind of came about when we were living, my husband at the time we were living in Seattle. He was in the military and I got a part-time little job. He was underway a lot. So I got a job with a heat and air company. It was very seasonal because all they do is heat up there. There's no need for AC. Got a little part-time job, kind of get away from the kids, and I ended up really loving it and just kind of fell into the parts portion of it. Learned a lot on my own, did a lot of research, I've just really enjoyed it ever since I've started.
And that is one of the unique things I think about you is when you say you learned a lot on your own, that's 100% true. You are just kind of if you don't know how to do something, you're going to YouTube it, you're going to look it up, you're going to figure it out. That's just the way you've been from the beginning? Is that just who you are, or did you have to learn that at some point?
No, I ask a lot of questions because I don't know all the answers, but I know someone who does. I have a phone full of people that if I don't know that answer, and I can admit that I don't know it, it's just finding the right one is always been a good thing that I've always used is if I don't know it, I'm going to look for it, I'm going to find it out, and I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah, nice.
Do you remember what the job posting was that you answered in Seattle at that first company? Do you remember it was just for customer service or what it was?
Yeah, it was for answering the phones, and being from the South up in Seattle, my accent's not bad, but up in Seattle, it's, quite different. And you're like, oh, I don't know about this. And I called everyone, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and that they just really didn't think I was a good fit on that source. But I ended up doing really well with the warranty and the parts. Someone didn't come into work one day and I stepped into that role to kind of fill in, and I was like, this is a mess. Why is it such a mess? Why do we have all these parts here? What's the warranty process? I started digging in And then I ended up getting that job, and I've just rolled with parts install ever since then. And when we moved here to Charleston, I worked with the company, came in as helping someone with parts. I ended up getting with the commercial side of things, working as his assistant. And we did very large commercial jobs. I did that for over 10 years, doing large projects. And he ran that whole commercial side, and I worked directly for him. And I learned that, and I just wasn't really going anywhere right there. He was the owner's, he was an owner, and I really couldn't go above him. So that's kind of how I got to Stephen at Dawn Finishes.
There's really only one way to go above the owner, you become the owner, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So you came over to Carolina Conditions. We hired you. We didn't really have a spot for you, but going back to kind of our mantra that Tim and I had, which is like, let's hire for talent, and then kind of figure it out later. So initially we brought you in to kind of do what you did at the very beginning, which was answer phones, and then very quickly got you kind of into handling kind of the service manager's assistant for terms, handling finding parts for the techs, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yes, I did estimates. I did everything. I basically did the role of the install manager because like it was a lot of work at the time. I just really helped him. And then what happened was I was burning some time, and I had like 50 hours, and they're like, you've got to use this time or you're going to lose it. So I'm like, it's August. I can't take time off. Well, I took time off, and then 2 days into my vacation, Tim called me and said, I'll pay you for your time. Get back to work. We have a crisis. And then he was kind of like, you're already doing the job, and he gave me that position. But he never paid anybody for their time.
Yeah, that's true.
So I took it as a huge compliment, and I took the time, came back to work, got it all sorted out, and we kept rolling. Then I became the install manager probably a couple of days after that.
So Mary, to give you a little bit of context, we were pretty small. We were doing heating and air, we were doing plumbing, we were doing electrical. So we had a heating and air manager, we had a plumbing manager, and we had an electrical manager. And that's a lot of overhead for a small company. And so we were stuck trying to decide. Heating and air by itself is a bit of an animal because service and install are so different, and having one person manage those both is really hard. And even kind of quote unquote having an assistant to help, our manager at the time was just stretched super thin. And so that was kind of as owners, we're like, man, we got to split these into two different departments. We need a kind of an install department. We need service. And so we know we're going to incur this overhead because now we're bringing on a fourth manager. And so here's behind the scenes. I'll give you both maybe a little bit of behind the scenes. Is we had a couple different candidates. We had candidates that we had put a job posting on Indeed and said, hey, we're looking for an install manager. So we had some external candidates, all of whom had a background in install. Either they had been an installer or they had been an install manager, or both. We had some internal candidates who either they were service techs who had some install experience but wanted to maybe come out of the field and be a manager. One of our installers wanted to be install manager. So we had several candidates, all of whom were men. And then we had Allison, who we felt was incredibly talented, but did not actually have any install experience. And so that was a little bit of the struggle from our side is, how do you evaluate varying skill sets? It's not like everybody's the same across the board and just one person happens to be better. Everybody's got different strengths and weaknesses. So some folks had the hands-on experience. They've crawled around through attics and under houses and everything else, and they know what that's like. And maybe they would make a great install manager. Allison, pretty organized, fairly detailed, works hard, answers her phone. Does all those great things. And I think part of the question in our head, Allison, was, putting you in a leadership role is a little different than just being maybe the assistant to somebody in the leadership role, right? Mm. And so we didn't know. That was a little bit of an unknown at the time. How would Allison do when she's actually got decision-making authority and can hire and fire installers? And how's that going to work? Mary, can I put you on the spot? One of the things we're hitting head on is dominated industry. And so as a woman, have you ever walked into the room and somebody been like, oh, I thought you were going to be a man? Or, I mean, if you, I don't know, Mary, I'm just kind of putting you on the spot. Have you run into that before?
Yeah, my favorite occurrence of this was I've been in a sales role, then did a stint in a finance role, and then came back into a sales role. And when I was going back to sales in the second time, um, I walked in to meet a brand new account, and they were looking at me like, okay, who are you, and why are you going to be our regional manager? And they actually said, what is the finance lady doing in sales? And it was so funny to me. I mean, I really took it in stride and lightheartedly, and I really don't think they were trying to be rude. I don't. But it was very much like, what is the finance lady doing in sales? And but they were sizing me up and they were trying to figure it out. And I said, well, it's funny you say that because I'm actually the sales lady who went to finance and now is back in sales. So let me tell you a little bit about me. And it just opened up the door for me to be very transparent about my career and where I had been, and also put them at ease a little bit that you're right. I've never been an HVAC sales manager before, but I have been a sales manager actually in, another what you might would think would be a male dominated industry with power tools. And it was just a very funny introduction to sort of like, oh, wow, people are always kind of judging you based on your appearance or your voice or the way you carry yourself. But they're also going to maybe judge you for things that are a little bit out of your control. And my advice to that is to greet it head on and be who you are. And you don't have to compromise for that. I'm not going to dress any differently and not do makeup or things that I like because there is a stigma that maybe more women aren't in the space. What I find really interesting is that the more you dig into the industry, there actually are a lot of women here. And that was when you were mentioning Allison and kind of her story. I was so excited to get to meet you, Allison, because I'm curious to know your experience with that. Like, have you seen more women coming up through HVAC as the years have come on, or even within the own departments that you're managing? Maybe not. I don't actually, let me just not even preface that. What have you seen?
We have one of our best technicians that we have here is a female. She sells everything. We send her. We throw people so off guard when we pull up, and she's smart. But she's very quiet. She's not very boisterous. She's fantastic, and we get so many reviews on her because she takes them off guard. That she knows what she's doing, and every time she goes into a house, she turns something. And she's fantastic. She has been one of probably our best hires that we've had. And I try to encourage people all the time. If I could go back and rewind things, I wish I would have gotten more hands-on experience. I've gotten it later on in the last couple of years. I do a lot more. I'm out in the field a lot more with things. I have a lot of part knowledge and I have a lot of equipment knowledge, but that's not the same as putting your hands on thing or knowing how hard it is to get an air handler in an attic, which makes me a better manager. If I go out there and I'm sitting here in this seat, oh, well, you should have this done by this, and why didn't you do this? Well, I don't know the application process. So I've had to go out on installs. I've had to go sit through it and see what they go through to make me better. Because I can take someone's experience, but until I'm there sweating and, thinking this is a terrible job and these are the guys I send out every day, I have to respect it. And it gave me a whole different outlook on what they do.
So take us, I mean, just if we could go back in time. So Tim calls you and says, hey, we need you back here. In fact, not only do we need you back here, we're going to promote you and make you install manager, right? And I don't know exactly how many years, but for the first 12, 13, 14 years of your career, you just kind of been an assistant to somebody. Now all of a sudden you're the manager. How did that go? How was that first week or that first month or the first 6 months? How was that?
It was difficult just because the lack of confidence in myself, because what Stephen and Tim believed in me, and I knew I could do it because I'd been doing it. I just didn't have the title of it. I'd been doing this for years, running divisions, and just didn't have that title per se. But I was scared to fail, to be honest. And I went to them because we make the money in the company. If I failed, Carolina Conditions failed. And that was a huge, like, sleepless nights of, oh God, what if I mess up, or if I don't steer this division in the right way, I can take us down. And that was just a lot of responsibility for me. I had a lot of people that were willing to help me. I have incredible installers. I actually still have those installers. We've had them here for almost 6 years, which is unheard of to have turnover. I've had no turnover in my install department. And I have incredible installers, and they make me look real good. I'm going to be 100% honest. But I also had an open door to Tim and to Steven. I could call them. I used to have to call Steven and Steven, don't do anything. I just want to complain about, I want to cry a little bit, but I don't want you to do anything. Don't, just to get some feedback, and it took a lot of them mentoring me as well.
I love that so much because speaking a lot to your skill set and clearly your leadership, which is phenomenal to, have such a great team that wants to stick around, but then also really giving some credit to the leaders above you, right? To give you that space to feel what you need to feel. And Stephen, now I'm kind of curious, what did you see in Allison that ultimately make you feel comfortable with that promotion? Because it is a unique journey.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a couple things. One, when you're the owner, one of the things you learn really quickly is that almost nobody cares about your company the way you care about your company, right? I mean, that's just kind of how that goes. And it's hard to expect somebody to care the way you care because you've got everything invested, right? If the business goes under, you go under. The employees could probably find another job in 36 hours, but you care because everything's tied up in there. I think one of the unusual things about Allison is how much she cares. And it's not that she doesn't, I would say, I'm sure Allison cares about the company and I'm sure she cares about me and all those things are true. But the people that Allison really cares about are her installers. And so that's why, when we had, our install department, when we hired Allison, if I had to grade us as a company, I would say we were a C, maybe a C plus. And so not only were we bringing in Allison to say, hey, will you manage this? We're saying to Allison, hey, we need you to improve this. And we're ramping up the number of sales guys we're going to have on staff. We're ramping up our marketing budget. So we anticipate, we don't need you to just manage at the current level. We need you to manage it up here, and we need you to get the excellence level up here. And that's easier said than done. That is hard to execute on, but Allison is absolutely correct. There's zero turnover in that department in 6 years, with the exception of the first week or so. If I could just kind of tell a story, we had a guy that's like, I'm not working for a woman. And we fired him on the spot. And after that, everybody was okay working for a woman. And but it wasn't because the threat of, oh my God, I'll get fired, because a good installer can work anywhere, right? The reason they haven't left or gone anywhere else is because they know Allison cares. They know that she's never going to hang them out to dry. They know that they're not going to be stuck at a house at 9 o'clock at night and her phone's going to be off. Whatever's going to happen, she's aware of it. And so it really is an impressive, and I don't say this lightly, Allison. I travel the country. I go to lots of heating and air companies. I've met lots of people. And I would say Allison, hands down, the best install manager I've ever met. So that I'm not blowing smoke, right? But
I appreciate that.
As our company grew, we did 5.7 million in total revenue in 2022. And probably half of that was heating and air. So let's call it 3 million was heating and air, and half of that was install. So roughly maybe 1.5 million was install. By 2024, we were doing, we almost did 12 million in revenue.
Yes.
Of it, 6 million was heating and air, of which 4.5 to almost 5 million was install, right? So Allison's department went from doing 1.5 million a year of installs to doing 5 million a year in installs in 3 years.
It's a tough
Um,
sell.
and I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it just the constant hiring and working and bringing new people on and mentoring the younger installers to say, hey, you're going to have to be a lead in 6 months, so you better learn well. And then bringing a new helper in and telling him, hey, you're going to be a lead in 6 months, so you better learn well. Yeah, Allison did an amazing job.
Yeah,
Allison, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to just ask, because of the growth, you had to take on new installers. What do you look for in an installer when you're expanding your team? Because clearly you've got a really good team, and so you've got an eye for talent. So what are you looking for?
I cheat. I like if I feel like I want to see pictures of work. Anyone can show pictures of your work because when you talk to someone when in an interview, it's like, oh, I'm this, I'm that, and then you hire them on, and then they're like, what the heck? Like this is terrible. What if I decided I want to hire someone? A lot of times I'll walk them out to their car, and I kind of like things a certain way. And when I look into their vehicle or just the condition of their car, if they're not going to keep their personal things together or they don't have tools, or there's a lot of indicators that you don't have it together. If you're not going to keep your car clean, something that you've paid for, what are you going to do with my stuff? I don't let my guys have a junky van. If you pull up to someone's house and you pull it up and it looks like it's a rolling meth lab in there, I don't want you. What are you going to do in my house? So I'm very strict on those things. It's like, but it's all presentation, and it's how you have to have pride in your work. I also send them with one of my most senior guys, and he will pick up the phone and say within 3 or 4 hours, he ain't worth a thing. And you know who I'm talking about. Marvin says that. He said he ain't worth it. Nope. How much you paying him? No. And I kind of give them a grace period of, hey, we're going to have this time to kind of see, the first 30 days. But my lead can find out within 1 or 2 days if he's worth it. And then we just don't continue. I've had to learn that. It's just, if you feel like someone's not working out, we just don't have to keep going.
I love that so much. My dad had a story of a manager that they were doing some hiring with, and in every interview, this manager would ask, what are your summer plans? Now, this might not work in our industry so much, but the manager would ask, what are your summer plans? And my dad finally was like, why are you asking all these candidates what their summer plans are? Like, what do we care? And he's like, I want to know if they hang out with their family. I want to know if they have a plan. I want to know if they have a tradition. Like, it's the answer could have been 100 different answers every single time, and they could have all been right. But he just wanted to know that, what something about their values that he wasn't going to get by asking, like, what are your values? And his way of doing that was your summer plans. And that, I feel like your cheat code is like, let me walk you out. Like, I think that's so great. Yeah.
I asked too, like, what tools do you have? That tells me a lot about someone, if they can keep their tools, if what tools do you have? That's how you make a living. Like, that is an indicator of how that is important to you. If you have all your tools and that's how you make your money, and that's all those things, that's a sure indicator too that you have it together. You're not selling your tools. You're not losing your tools. You invest in yourself, and a lot of that shows a lot of personality characteristics to me. Because if you don't invest in yourself, how am I going to invest in you? Because it takes a lot of time to get these guys to where you want them. And they might be really good installers, but they're not how we want them at Carolina Conditions. Doesn't make that what you came in is wrong. It's that we just do things different. And that's, if you're trainable, if we can have a conversation and you can say, hey, you might have done this at a different job, but we like it like this. These are our standards. And it's how they have that perception. If they're going to push back on you or do those things, I'm not at that job, but I need to make sure those are done. And so if they don't follow simple directions and different rules, I can't babysit them. We just have to go a different route.
Can I go back to something you said a second ago, which is sometimes you would just call and say, hey, I need to complain or vent, but I don't want you to do anything. Why would you not want me to do anything?
I got frustrated one time and I was like, Steven, because I'd get in my car, I couldn't vent or like yell at the guys or anything like that, or yell at a situation. I really had to get that under control. I'm reactive, and I've had to really kind of tone that down a little bit. Like when something is irritating, but I gotta get it out. And I called Steven and complained about something or someone at work. So I'm like, you won't believe what they did. They messed up my schedule and all these things. I came back the next day and they were gone. And I was like, I was like, I didn't want you to do that. I was like, Steven, I was just mad. And so every time I would call him, I'm like, Steven, please don't fire anybody, but I need to get it out. And he's like, you want me to do something? And I'm like, no, I just need you to listen. And he made the right decision by getting rid of that person because they were a hot mess. But I just had to complain about it. And they were gone the next day. I came in and I'm like, where's so-and-so? They're like, oh, they fired. I'm like, oh God.
Well, Mary, you asked a question. I mean, I think here's one of the challenges that I had as a business owner. So, let's say Allison makes a decision and I don't agree with it, right? Or I would have done it differently. Well, what do you do as a business owner? Like, there's a couple options. One is I go, no, Allison, this is my company. This is how I want it done. You got to do it this way, right? And what ends up happening over time is that just cuts the legs out from under your managers. They don't have the authority to make decisions. Everybody starts to learn, well, if I just go over Allison's head to Steven, he'll make it happen, or, and so, you have to, on one hand, back up your manager, right? I mean, so even if I maybe would have done it differently, or that's not the decision I would have made or something, I have to be very careful that I'm not just constantly stepping on her toes, because ultimately, if I undermine my own manager, that's bad for the company, right? And then that's a lot of times worse for the company than whatever decision maybe I would have made otherwise. So I think that was kind of one lesson learned as a manager, is that I can't undercut. I as an owner, I can't undercut my manager. But then also the other side of that is that while I need to have Allison's back, I can't do things for her, because that has the exact same effect of essentially undermining Allison, right? And so if I come in and I'm like, all right, let me just fix all this right here. That guy's fired. We're going to do this, or like I can make it all happen, but that also undermines Allison. So I think some of those I was learning how to be a good boss and a good business owner. Allison's learning how to be a manager for the first time. We kind of learned those lessons together. We didn't always get it right. And so, but it was an interesting lesson learned. I will say we had a scenario where we had a plumber one time who parked his van in front of the bay door that install used to load and unload equipment in and out, right? And so he's parked his van there, and Allison walks out and very politely is like, hey, you got to move your van. Like we got trucks coming in and out of this bay door here. And apparently Allison walked back in the building, and then that plumber kind of went off behind her back on who does she think she is telling me what to do. And the installers grabbed that plumber and took him behind the warehouse and resolved that issue without me even knowing about it for like probably a month. And so what was interesting about that was just the loyalty that the installers had. You might block their bay door and they'll get annoyed, but you badmouth Allison and they were going to let you know that wasn't ever going to happen again. So it was interesting that I started out thinking that I needed to solve Allison's problems for her. And in reality, I didn't. She was fully capable of doing it herself, but also she had the full support of her department. And if needed, they would solve problems for her as well.
And they did. What's one thing about you is that you always let me, I always came to you with like 3 solutions. Hey, like, I try not to come, they did me I think what the best they could have ever done was they left me alone to do it. If I had questions, they know that I would come to them, but I always came to them with a solution. I said, here's the problem. I have here's 3 things that I think will work. You're the owner. What do you want me to do? If it's something that I couldn't resolve on my own, or I thought that needed their attention. Steven and Tim paid me a lot of money to manage that division. I took that as an honor because they would leave me alone. Like people that were in their office because they weren't doing their job and they were getting in trouble. They left me alone. I didn't get the emails. I didn't get the, they just said, just keep doing it until we tell you anything different. So they gave me a lot of freedom. But I also, I took their best interest into account, but I always tried to give them, if I felt like it was out of my hands, I would go to them with a problem. And I think y'all really appreciated that because I didn't just throw it on you to figure it out because y'all were paying me to do that.
Yeah. I've been reading a sales development book called Proactive Sales Management. And one of the key points in the beginning of the book is remember who is paying you. And and it's not meant again, like in an aggressive way, like remember where you get your paycheck, but you're representing that company, and especially in your seat, you're very close to the owner, right? Working for a manufacturer, I'm a little bit removed from like that ownership board, but you can see like, wow, decisions that they make are going to affect us as a whole here. And I feel that too, even though the ownership structure is, far further removed. But you just have to remember too, like we're representatives here and we all have to be professional and carry that through. And that's a really good point. And it also then like in turn serves as a good point of pride of how you make your money, right? Like, you have integrity and now you can carry that through in your life. So I think it's great advice for really anything in your world, not even just career, but just remember like where that's coming from, why that mission exists in the first place. And it's noble.
Mary,
If you did get on to me, he got on to, I think once, he didn't even get on to me, but you're like, hey, Allison, we got to do this. And I tell you what, like it stung, and they weren't even fussing. They were just like, hey, next time do this, I probably would have done this. And I said, it hurt because they were so good to me. They never fussed at me I never, would say get in trouble. But I know when, I think Stephen did it one time and I was like, oh God. And I've seen him get on people and it wasn't near what I got, and it was deserved, but they were always very, good to me and I was good to them.
Mary, I got a question. So if you had to think of Mary and I are salespeople. So stereotypically, what are 2 or 3 things that are the worst traits about salespeople in general? Can I put you on the spot again, Mary? Like, what would you say, top 2 or 3 things that stereotypically salespeople they're terrible at?
Well, I mean, as we've covered many times on many episodes, I am very good. So no,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Well, I think people perceive salespeople to be incredibly lazy, and that we're not hunters of information. We're just constantly asking people to kind of spoon feed us information, which that in and of itself kind of. I think that's the perception. I don't think salespeople are lazy. I think that they're just kind of juggling that tip of the spear interaction with customers, and they're firing on all cylinders really quickly. So again, I think it's perception.
Lazy's one. I'll take that.
But I am really cautious about that one because I've even had to say like, well, we just need the information quickly at our fingertips. But all right, so lazy's one. And I mean, maybe impatient is really what I mean when I say lazy. Salespeople are impatient. Yep. And then the question was what we're bad at, what we're really bad at. Paperwork.
Absolutely. So let's turn this around to Allison. So Allison, you've got 2 salespeople right here, but you have had to interact with a sales team, right? They're out there selling. In some cases, they come across as lazy. In some cases, they're very impatient. In some cases, their paperwork stinks. And in some weeks, all of the sales team has all 3 of those traits going, right? Mm-hmm. And so you are, how do you, because you're in charge of installers, so you can hire and fire and make management decisions, but now you've got this sales team that they're not always doing what they're supposed to do. How did you manage those relationships?
A lot of it was difficult because I knew what they were making, from from that standpoint of what they were making and what they were doing was incredibly, to me, a little bit entitled, because some of them didn't feel like they had to do certain things, and that kind of comes off. I don't think it'd be lazy. A lot of it was like, oh, well, be lucky you have the job. Be lucky that I sold the job. I don't have to go into the house, but you want us to go into the house and figure it out. But that's what we're paying you to do. And it causes a lot of resentment on the service side and install side when the salesperson doesn't, what we call look out for the next man. Doesn't take the measurement of the attic. We're going to have to drop the stairs now. Why didn't you tell me we needed an extension ladder? Because now we have to wait for the parts department, to, warehouse to somehow get an extension ladder out there. And then they're waiting, and, the salesperson was there. And I think that's what causes a lot of tension between the two, is just not thinking about that. Putting on like installer eyes is what I call it.
I see a lot of different companies. I go into a lot of offices. I see a lot of values written on walls. I don't know that I see look out for the next man as often as we as an industry probably value that. So I think that if we have any takeaways from talking to an install manager today, is that maybe we built that into, our ethos of what we need to do. We've got to look out for the person behind us. And I think that's really simply said and could be more applied throughout the industry.
Absolutely. I tell them that, the installers see it, they have installer eyes, and sales sees sales eyes, and they're trying to make the connection with the customer. They're petting a dog. They're, making those things to get this sell. Our guys go in, they look at the dog, and we're like, why did they look at this stuff? Or why didn't we know this? And I said, there's two sets of eyes when you go out. There's sales eyes and install eyes, but there's some things that are very common that we can all do to help. It's just thinking about that next person. And it just, it keeps a lot of resentment towards the installers to the sales, and the sales to the installers, because the installers can go in there and, really ruin a relationship with a customer, because they're upset with the salesperson.
I think what Allison was good at was just very politely setting boundaries, right? So a sales guy can call and say, hey, I just sold this. It's got to go in tomorrow for whatever reason. There's extenuating circumstances. And Allison would say, hey, we can make it happen. We can move some things around and make it happen. But I need your paperwork. I need your pictures. I need the equipment. And so the sales guys are like, oh, but it's urgent. Like, I don't have time to do my paperwork. And Allison's like, if it's urgent, you'll be able to make time to do your paperwork. And that, that tension, I think that exists outside of, I do consulting outside of the heating and air industry. And so there's always tension between sales and operations. I don't care if it's a pharmaceutical company or a software company or what, right? There's just always going to be some tension between sales and operations. And I thought Allison did a very good job of just navigating that tension that always exists, of just saying, hey, if it's urgent, then you'll be able to make it a priority. I'll make it a priority on my side too, but you can't drop the ball and then expect us to pick up the pieces. If it's truly an emergency, you got to rise to the occasion too. And I think she trained the sales guys. That really was artful on her side, to say, hey, we'll make it happen for you, but here's what we need you to do.
I made them also go have difficult conversations with customers if things weren't done correctly, because a lot of times what will happen is, like we'll go out there and something's, the salesperson missed it. And then so we've got to call the customer, and I have to have a very difficult conversation with a customer that I have no rapport with and say, oh, sorry, but we've got to do this. So I now, because it's easy for the salesperson just to miss, like, oh, Allison's going to take care of it. We'll have her call. She can be the bad guy. You're the bad guy. You need to call and sort that out. And so once I started doing that, putting my foot down on that, of having them there at the job, walking the job with the customer, with the salesperson, so there's no lack of communication, because we have that a lot. Because a lot of times sales, we're out there, oh yeah, while we're out here, we'll do this, no problem. Oh yeah, certainly we'll do this. that's great, and we'll do it, but we need to know we're doing it.
Yeah, tell me.
It's those little details that people get upset about. We'll come in and put this, incredible system in and did all this stuff, but Stephen told me y'all are going to replace that grill. Why didn't y'all replace that grill? Well, we leave the job. We didn't know we were supposed to, and they're upset. So a lot of that was just, you know what, Stephen, you need to call the customer and tell them why we didn't replace that grill. Tell them we're going to be out, and actually, here's the grill. You go put it up. And that stopped a lot of it.
What did you use any sort of system to communicate between sales and install that you found really effective? Was it just
Get on the phone.
Get on the phone. Hey, but you know what? I'm glad that's your answer, because I think sometimes, especially in the world of FSM, CRM, LMNOPs, we overcomplicate this. Well, where's the box that fits that note so that I can make sure that I check? And it's like, it's not that hard. Just call the phone. Yeah.
And I'm not texting you. I'm going to talk on the phone. We're going to, we're going to get on the phone. We're going to talk about it. We're going to resolve it. A lot of things like you need to resolve internally. I don't need to go tell Stephen every time something happens, like we can resolve, we can get through it. It continues to be a problem. Then we need to be, every job is different. Every job has a different struggles and circumstances. They're not all perfect. Or we couldn't charge what we do to do installs. If it was easy, everybody could do it. This job is not easy. It's tough and it's difficult, and there's 100 things that they have to do in an install. We have to get it right. And so if it was easy, we wouldn't be able to charge what we do. So it's a phone call, and these customers deserve phone calls. I make whoever we schedule jobs with, do not text them. You call them first. They're spending a lot of money. We need to treat them that way. And I do the same thing with the installers and the salespeople. We're all humans, and we all have to work together, and we spend a lot of time together. We need to get along. We need to figure it out. And I have their wife's phone number, so if they irritate me too much, I text their wife.
Let's go.
How's he being heard today?
Are you the salesperson that mailed commission checks to wives, Stephen? Was that you? Was that somebody else I met? Then people were like, "What do you mean you can get an extra $50 for a thermostat? Go sell some thermostats."
That's right.
One last story.
It's just a lot of communication.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One last story. We had a few installs in a row that didn't go well, and most of them revolved around the XV line and trying to zone them or do some things that was fairly technically complicated. And so we set up a class with our FSR, and it was just our company. We said, hey, we're struggling with this. We've screwed up 2 or 3 in a row, and we need to, let's get this right. And, one of the things that kind of as a result, here's what Allison said. She's like, hey, I'll block off the day. I will bring all of my installers in for this training. But your sales team needs to be there. And she looked at me, she's like, and Stephen, because I was the sales manager, she's like, you need to be there. And so we had a day. We went and we went to Trane's offices, and our FSR did a class just for us. And we had the sales team, and you had the owner in the room, and you had the installers, and you had the install manager. And we were like, okay, everybody is on the same page now. This is how we're doing it. And, the FSR was like, I got to be honest, I've been doing this for a while, and I don't know that I've ever seen all the salespeople, all the installers, the owner, and the install manager all show up for a class on zoning. But it was really Allison that was like, hey, this crap is going to stop, and we're going to get on the same page. And so, at some point, she's just like, this is how we're doing it. And I just said, yes, ma'am. And I showed up when I was supposed to show up, and the sales team showed up because she told us to. And so, I think it's sometimes you're a leader because you have a title, and sometimes you're a leader because you're like, I'm going to be this is how we're moving forward. And so it was impressive to see Allison's career progression from just kind of being assistant, in charge of maybe warranty parts or to all of a sudden she's running now $6-7 million worth of a business and doing it very well, with 0 turnover in an install department.
So. Promoted to an operations manager now here.
Look at you.
Yeah, so that's been a big, thing for me. So it's I've always said I love what I do. I can't work for someone that I don't respect. So I've always been that I've been that girl, like if I can't respect you, I can't come to work and, give you 100% of me. And I've always said that. I've had a really good experience. Tim and Stephen have always done what they promised me. And they couldn't give me dates or whatever. They said, but hey, when we're here, we're going to do this. And they always did that. And that made me very loyal to them. And, that's what I did. And also too, just the freedom of being able to not know something. And I didn't know it all. And I never will. I just have to learn every day to be better and get better at my craft, because this is a great industry and it's done me and my family very well.
That's awesome. It is a great industry, and
it's a wonderful industry.
I agree with you on that. It's a great place to really kind of cut your teeth and learn some skills and get better and stronger. And it's interesting because we kind of started this conversation as, you're a female in HVAC and what is that like? But you really could peel all of that away, and like, this is applicable to anybody in HVAC. And it's a great just reminder that constantly learning, asking questions, building a culture that is rooted in, trust and accountability can create a really great place to work. But when any one of those things kind of gets forgotten or goes away, or we stop learning new things and we stop trying new things, we stop communicating, that's when you really kind of see these tensions bubble over. And especially as I've been doing a lot on the road to meet customers and just get a little bit more just in tune with how people are dealing with the current environment, market and struggles. And it's amazing because I can pull several examples where you can see some of those pillars kind of start to crumble, and then the sort of fire alarm emergency starts ringing. Like, what are we going to do? And so, big kudos to you just for really keeping those values forefront of your mind and with your teams, because it shows and you can feel it in the call. Definitely.
They're very important to me. They're good. I have a really good crew. I'm blessed with that, and they're good. But I also say too, is like also being a female, I can say things to them that probably Stephen couldn't. Like, I can go down, what are you doing? I can yell at them on the phone. I can fuss at them and really dig into them sometimes on things. That's a lot easier for me to do it as a female than it would, because I'm not going to fight them. I don't get a lot of the resistance of it. But I'll tell you one thing that I've really done, and I continue to do it, is I pull them in periodically and ask them, what do you need me to do to improve? What can I do to be better? Because a lot of things that they see, I might not even know that I'm doing, or is something I can do better for them. I have a very open door policy. If there's something that I can do to improve, I want that. Their work life is important. And I always say that my job is, they don't work for me, I work for them. This needs to be like that upside down triangle where they're here and I'm at the bottom, because I want this to be the best place that it can be for them. And that's my job, is to do that. And I 100% work for them, and I kind of keep that culture. But I also don't take any of their crap either.
And there's the boundaries, healthy boundaries.
Yeah, healthy boundaries.
Healthy boundaries.
Well, thanks, Allison, for joining us today. We just wanted to kind of pick your brain and hit you with some questions and, kind of hear it from your perspective. So thank you.
Well, it's good talking to you. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Stephen, I miss you. Come see us.
Well, this was an amazing conversation, Stephen. Thank you for having so many friends and inviting them onto our podcast. I promise I have some, and I will step it up, maybe. But for those of you who want to reach out to us, or if you have any topics that you're interested on having us expand on, we would love to receive them. You can email us at HVAC_full_blast at tranetechnologies.com. And as I say, if you didn't catch that, hit the rewind button. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks.